How did I discover my wife's infidelity? It was surprisingly straightforward. I witnessed it firsthand. We were at a friend's outdoor barbecue, and while heading inside to grab a drink, I caught a glimpse of my wife Lainey in a compromising position with Corey, one of our neighbors. They were engrossed in a passionate embrace against the hallway wall. Corey had his tongue so deep in Lainey's throat it seemed it might emerge from her rear. Lainey clung to him tightly, her arms wrapped around his head, while Corey's hands were firmly gripping and kneading her buttocks. Shocked and horrified, I intervened, pulling Corey away as Lainey looked on in shock, her eyes wide with horror at being caught. I was about to confront Corey physically, but Lainey stepped between us, pleading with me to stop. Corey downplayed the situation, claiming it was just a kiss, but I wasn't convinced. I quickly ushered Lainey away, insisting we leave with the kids. Despite her protests and attempts to downplay the incident, I was resolute. Corey, known as the neighborhood's unofficial drug supplier, tried to diffuse the tension by suggesting we return to the party and smoke some marijuana. However, I was too enraged to entertain the idea and firmly told him to stay away from my family. As we left, Lainey tried to calm me down and suggested staying at the party, but I was adamant about leaving. I made it clear that if she chose to stay, she needn't bother coming home. With anger coursing through me, I stormed off, leaving Lainey to gather the kids. As we left, Corey taunted me, further fueling my frustration. Despite being typically laid back and avoiding confrontation, I felt an overwhelming urge to retaliate. Lainey eventually found the kids playing outside with the neighborhood children, and I decided to leave Eloise, our eldest, behind with her friends, while Craig, our youngest, could nap upon our return. We lived just 4 doors down from where the incident occurred. As soon as we entered the house, Lainey, clearly upset, took Craig straight to his room to try to get him to nap. When she returned, I confronted her. "All right, Lainey, how long has this been going on?" "Babe, I don't know what you're talking about." "It was just a kiss," she replied. "Bullshit, that kiss I saw earlier wasn't the first," I retorted angrily. "How long, Lainey?" With a deep sigh, she leaned against the kitchen counter, looking defiant. "It's been a little while, I'm not exactly sure." "Are you serious? You're sleeping with another man and you don't know how long?" I shouted. "Are we talking days, weeks, months, or years?" "Honey, you're overreacting." "I guess it's been a couple of months, I don't know," she admitted. "Overreacting?" I yelled. "I have every right to be angry, don't I?" Craig, frightened by the yelling, ran out, prompting Lainey to take him back to his room to calm down. She returned about an hour later. By then, I had calmed down and was sitting on the deck with a beer. Lainey joined me, dismissing the situation. "Luke, you're making a big deal out of nothing. It's not like we're in love or anything. It was just some harmless fun." "A few times a week? How often?" I questioned, baffled by her lack of remorse. She took a sip of my beer before admitting, "Okay, we had sex once or twice a week. It's not a big deal, just a bit of fun." "Why, Lainey? Am I that useless?" I asked, feeling hurt. Looking guilty, she confessed, "I don't know, it just happened. Corey and I started fooling around after taking the kids to the park. We'd smoke a bit of weed, and things escalated. So, I have nothing to worry about? It's just casual sex?" I pressed. Lainey nodded. "Babe, remember when we talked about swinging last year? This is similar. I didn't think you'd mind." "Bullshit. Why didn't you tell me?" I snapped. Realizing her mistake, she apologized, fetching us fresh beers. "You're right, I should have told you. I'm sorry." "This whole thing is wrong," I declared, taking the beer. We sat in silence, drinking until she suggested we could make love now. Eloise won't be home for a while. It could be fun for both of us. "How is that fun for me?" I demanded. Lainey sighed. "Babe, it could be like last year when we talked about joining a swinging group. Why is this any different?" "That was just talk, Lainey. We discussed it together, but it was never serious, and you know that," I asserted. Bullshit, you were just as enthusiastic. We shared fantasies and talked about it plenty. So why is this such a big deal? She countered. It's a big deal because we never acted on it together. You lied to me, cheated, and made a fool out of me, I retorted, feeling betrayed. Shocked, she asked, how did I make a fool out of you? Because everyone will be laughing at me behind my back, making fun of me. Our friends must know, I explained. Shaking her head, she insisted, nobody knows. We haven't told anyone. Bullshit, Lainey. Guys are different. Even if you didn't say anything, he's probably bragged to all his mates about it. I've heard him bragging about other women he slept with, I argued. She shrugged, saying, well, if he has, nobody said anything to me. You both must have laughed at my expense, me, the unsuspecting idiot, I accused. Grabbing my hand, she pleaded, no, babe, we never did that. We should have told you, maybe even involved you. We should have had a threesome together. I choked on my beer, shocked by her suggestion. What? No, my idea of a threesome didn't involve another guy. She smirked, well, if it's good for the gander, it's good for the goose. I'm not interested in a threesome with him, and the fact that you don't care shows me exactly what you think of me, I snapped. Babe, I'm sorry you're hurting. I love you, let me make it up to you, she pleaded, hugging me tightly. It's not that simple, Lainey. You lied to me. I don't know if I can trust you again, I replied, feeling conflicted. Please, give me a chance. I promise I won't see Corey again. It's just you and me, she begged, her lips brushing against my neck. Just then, Eloise burst in with her friend Belle, asking for a sleepover. Before Lainey could respond, I intervened, denying the request. Belle looked devastated, and Eloise was upset, not understanding why. After Belle left, I explained to Eloise that there would be no more sleepovers with Belle for now. She ran off crying, and Lainey scolded me for taking it out on the kids, insisting they weren't part of the situation. Lainey, if there's even a slight chance for us, we need a complete break. Corey has to be out of our lives completely, and that includes the kids. He's not welcome here anymore. As far as I'm concerned, he's no longer part of our lives, I stated firmly. Shaking her head in disbelief, Lainey muttered, but we'll run into him everywhere, at parties, the kids' soccer games, in town. You're the one who fixes his car. Not anymore. I'm serious about this, Lainey. It's a complete break, I insisted. You're punishing the girls for my mistake. That's not fair. Eloise will hate you for this, and I won't support it, she argued. Well, that certainly puts me in my place, doesn't it? Maybe I should just pack up and leave right now, I retorted. Luke, that's not what I meant. If that's what you want, I won't see or talk to Corey again. But I won't support driving a wedge between the girls. They're best friends, she clarified. That night, she tried to initiate sex, but I pushed her away, unable to shake off the disappointment. Rolling away from her, I felt her snuggle behind me, whimpering, I'm sorry, Luke. I didn't mean to hurt you. The next day, being Sunday, we took the kids to the park for a picnic and played soccer for a while. It was a pleasant day, which helped keep our anger at bay, although I noticed Lainey texting frequently. After dinner, I confronted her, so, what was with all the texting? She grimaced, it was Corey. I had to tell him what happened and explain that it's over. He just wanted to make sure I was okay. Okay, what a hero, I scoffed. I've never even touched another woman in my life. She reassured me, I know that, but he doesn't. He was just checking in. Well, that better be the last contact you have with him, because if it's not, I'm leaving, I warned. Monday was tough. I struggled to focus at work, consumed by thoughts of what had happened. By the end of the day, I was mentally exhausted and just wanted peace and quiet. I have my own business, a vehicle repair shop in town. Besides my family, it's my biggest love. I built it up from nothing, starting in the shed at home. Now it's a successful business, and our finances have never been better. But if Lainey and I split, I'd lose everything. When I walked in, I was shocked to see Corey sitting with Lainey. They both looked up as I entered, and Corey approached me tentatively, extending his hand. I ignored it and snapped, "Get out, Corey. If you talk to anyone in my family again, we're going to have a real issue." He gave me a pained glare. "Mate, I just wanted to say sorry for the way things turned out. Bro, if you gave this a chance, you'd see this could work out for all of us, if you know what I mean." "I don't know what you mean, get the hell out," I barked. "Just leave." Lainey jumped up and ran over to act as an intermediary. "Luke, babe, we just wanted to talk, sort this out so we can remain friends." "There will be no talking or sorting out." I pushed her aside as she tried to hold my hand. "Corey, get out. You aren't welcome here, so leave." Shrugging, he glared back and forth between Lainey and me. I think he was waiting for her to back him up or something before realizing he was on his own. He turned and walked out the door. As he walked by, staring back at Lainey, I shoved him hard. He bounced off the door and stumbled, falling through the door. "Stay out of our lives, you jerk," I screamed, not caring who heard. I slammed the door as he hit the ground. Lainey stood staring at the door, her mouth hanging agape. "Luke, we just wanted to talk." "I don't want to hear this crap. Mark my words, Lainey, if he ever comes back here, then the shit will hit the fan." I picked up my cast-aside stuff and headed off for a shower to regather my senses. When I wandered down, Lainey was waiting in ambush. "So what happens now, Luke?" "I don't know. I'm still trying to get my head together. At the moment, I can't get any traction. You have really messed me up. Just stay away from him." Frowning, she burst out with her own scathing attack. "Oh, don't play the innocent wounded victim, Jesus, Luke. It hasn't changed anything. If you put aside all this stupid bullshit, we can get on with enjoying our lives. There's no reason why we still can't be friends." Shaking my head in disbelief, I groaned. "Lainey, I don't understand your blasé attitude. You didn't lend him a pot or a lawnmower, you gave him your body, and that's something you promised would be mine." "Yours!" she screamed. "You don't own me. I am my own person, and it's my body. Okay, I admit I should have spoken to you first, but stop acting like the world is ending." "For me, the world is ending," I barked back at her. "At the moment, I can't stand the sight of you, and I am barely able to stop myself from strangling you to death." She stepped back, stumbling a little. "You don't mean that, Luke. You're just angry." "No, Lainey, I am bloody serious. I hate you," I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. I drove around mindlessly, ending up at the pier. I parked and watched people coming and going. They all looked happy, and all I felt was anger, burning with an intensity one had never felt before. The smug look on Corey's face as he stood there was imprinted in my memory. As the sun went down, I realized I wanted vengeance. I wanted them both to hurt as much as I did, especially him. A plan started to emerge, and he was going to be easy to mess with. I drove home with a smile on my face. At work, I went through my records. Weeks ago, a guy had come in with car troubles and offered to pay with drugs. Now, he was going to be part of my plan. I found his number and called him to see if he still needed work done, and he confirmed that he did. I went over with the tow truck and picked up his car, agreeing that he would pay me with methamphetamine or ICE. The job was straightforward, and I delivered it myself the next day. Stage 1 was complete. Years earlier, when my father passed away, I had to clean out his shed to prepare the property for sale. Among his belongings, I found several guns hidden amongst his old possessions. I took one of the pistols, an old Smith & Wesson revolver, into the bush and fired off a few rounds for fun. That night, I filed off all the serial numbers and meticulously cleaned them, removing any fingerprints. I loaded them into a small trunk along with the ammunition and bags of methamphetamine. I threw in some cash for good measure and closed the lid. Stage 2 was complete. That night, after everyone was asleep, I picked up the trunk and snuck over to Corey's place. I wasn't sure where to plant the trunk without him noticing, but to my surprise, the shed was unlocked. I stored the trunk in a corner and left. Stage 3 was complete. The town had recently appointed a new police sergeant who was known for his strictness. I hoped he would show the same determination in investigating Corey. The next day, I called the police anonymously from a phone booth in town and tipped them off about Corey's drug dealing and the presence of guns. The mention of guns seemed to pique their interest. Back at the workshop, we heard sirens and saw police cars speeding past. The guys in the workshop ran out to see what was happening, and Mike shouted, "They're heading up your way, boss." When I got home, I was surprised to find Corey's kids at our place. "What's going on?" She explained that Corey had been arrested, and the kids had nowhere else to go. She suggested we look after them until he sorted things out. I refused, insisting that they were his responsibility and couldn't stay with us. She was shocked at my outburst but tried to calm me down, suggesting we have dinner and relax. I reiterated that they couldn't stay, and if she didn't arrange something, I would take them to the police station myself. She glared angrily at me. "Luke, honey, don't be unreasonable. They're just kids, they haven't caused any trouble. What will Eloise say? Belle is her best friend, and it's only for a couple of days. Get them out of here now, or I'll do it myself." Flinging her arms in the air in frustration, she cursed at me, but within an hour, they were gone. Eloise was upset, and she shot me angry glares throughout dinner until she couldn't hold it in any longer and whispered angrily, "Dad, why couldn't Belle stay?" "Because her father has done some really bad things, and he might go to jail." Laney interrupted sharply, "Don't be absurd, Luke. He's not going to jail, he'll be out tomorrow." I looked at Eloise, who had started crying. "Eloise, sweetheart, you need to know the truth. Belle's dad is a very bad man, and yes, he might go to jail. He has done some terrible things, so you may not see Belle as much as you used to." Laney screamed, "Shut up, Luke, you're scaring her." Frightened by the sudden tension and our arguing, Eloise ran crying to her bedroom. Laney snapped, "Are you satisfied now? You couldn't keep quiet for 5 minutes, could you?" After dinner, I watched the evening news, and Corey was indeed on the headlines. What shocked me was the scale of his illegal operation. He wasn't just growing a few plants, he had converted part of his house into a large hydroponic grow room. I sat stunned as the news showed the extent of his operation. With the discovery of the plants, guns, meth, and over $25,000 in cash, he could be facing a lengthy prison sentence. The next day, it all started to unravel. When I got home, Laney grabbed me and pleaded, "Luke, promise me you had nothing to do with setting him up. They found guns there, and Corey hates guns, he never owned one." Feigning innocence, I replied, "What are you talking about? Setting him up? Where would I even get guns? Maybe you didn't know him as well as you thought. They found other hard drugs there too." She quickly retorted, "That's a setup, you know he only dealt with weed. You know him, Luke." "I don't know anything anymore. I thought he was my friend, but I was wrong. I thought I had a loving wife, but I was wrong about that too. I hope he goes away for a long time." She leaned against the wall. "Well, you might get your wish. He called today to ask if we could take the kids." "That's not happening. They're not staying here." Grabbing my shoulders, she pleaded, "Luke, I understand you're upset with him and me, but don't take it out on the kids. They're innocent, and there's nowhere else for them to go." "Of course, there is. There are foster parents or the orphanage. All I know is they can't stay here." The argument continued for days, with Laney persistently trying to convince me to take in Corey's kids. She even enlisted the help of our neighbors in her efforts to change my mind. It seemed everyone sympathized with him, offering assistance if we agreed to look after them. My initial plan for revenge had spiraled out of control. Despite Corey's claims of innocence, the evidence against him was overwhelming. He was in serious trouble. Not only was he facing jail time, but he was also losing everything. His bank accounts were frozen, and his assets were seized under the new laws of the Misuse of Drugs Act. Additionally, he was charged with falsely claiming benefits. His life was falling apart. The kids ended up staying with another single mother in the neighborhood to ensure they could continue attending the same school. It was a tough situation for them, and that was the hardest part for me to accept. Lainey was right. They were innocent victims. With Corey's situation resolved, my focus shifted to my relationship with Lainey. The fallout from Corey's arrest, coupled with my refusal to take in the kids, created a divide between us. We barely spoke, and our marriage seemed to be crumbling. Despite sharing a bed, there was no affection between us, and being in the same room felt unbearable. The tension simmered, affecting every aspect of our lives. Both of us avoided addressing the underlying issues until it became unavoidable. "Luke, we need to talk about where we're headed," Lainey finally said. I nodded. Agreed. Maybe divorce is the best option for us. What? I was thinking counseling or something, but you're jumping straight to divorce, she exclaimed. I don't know what else to do. I'm unhappy with how things are, and I don't see counseling as a solution. I don't want to pour out our problems to a stranger, I replied. Luke, I don't want a divorce. I know I made a mistake with Corey, and we should have talked about it. I've apologized, but can't we move past this? Lainey pleaded. Talk to me. What were you thinking? Hey, babe, mind if I have an affair? I retorted. She chuckled. It sounds ridiculous when you put it like that, but if we had talked about it, what would you have said? I would have said no, I stated firmly. She seemed disappointed or resigned as she continued, Honey, what harm was there? What happened that made this such a catastrophic event? How would you feel if I slept with another woman? I asked. She smiled. Is this about you feeling like you missed out or something? How did you even get that from what I said? I'm saying I assumed you would feel the same if the roles were reversed, I clarified. Well, you assumed wrong. I wouldn't mind. That's what I mean. Babe, if you want to see other women, I'm okay with it. All I want is for you to be honest with me. Yeah, like you were with me. No, I've apologized for that. It was wrong, I should have told you. Tell me this. What would have happened when I said no? She slumped back. I would have tried to change your mind, see if we could find a way to make it work. But what would you have done if I said no? Nothing. If you weren't happy, I wouldn't have done it. So you thought I was going to be okay with it? Yes. I didn't think you would be upset. Well, not like this. Why did you keep it a secret if you didn't think it was a big deal? I didn't set out to do it. Luke, you have to believe me. It just sort of happened, it came out of the blue. I mean, we always got along well, and we flirted a bit. God, you know all this, you've seen it. There's a difference between some flirting and having sex. Yeah, I know that. I'm just trying to explain what happened. We flirted a bit. He had some really nice weed, and we got stoned. Craig and Harper were sound asleep, we had music playing, it was a beautiful day, and it just sort of happened. At first, it was just a kiss, then his hands were all over me, and I was horny. God, I was so fucking horny. Well, we ended up doing it there on the daybed out in the sunshine. I should have told you, I wanted to, but I got scared, and every day that went past, it got harder and harder. What would you have said if it was me? If you found out I was sleeping with one of your friends, what would you have said? She shrugged. I don't know. I would have been shocked, maybe angry if you didn't tell me. Fighting back some tears, she sniffled. I'm sorry, hon, I never meant to hurt you. It was supposed to be fun. I've always been okay with sex outside marriage, and you know that. I'm not a prude, and neither are you. For heaven's sake, we talked about it. Jesus, what we talked about was swinging, but we both ran out of courage. She cuddled up to me. Can we get past this? Could you forgive me? I don't know, Lainey. I thought we were good, and it hurts that it went on for months, and you kept it a secret. How the hell am I supposed to trust you again? How do I know that anything you say to me isn't a lie? Because I promise you here today that I will never lie to you again. Babe, I love you, and it hurts knowing that I caused you all this pain. I don't know, Lainey. We made those promises to each other on our wedding day. Why is now more important than then? I made a mistake, I admit that. I should have talked to you first. For goodness sake, Lainey, you wanted to keep seeing him. You didn't even think what you did was wrong. I made a mistake, I got caught up in it. Babe, it was incredibly sexy. I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed it. The physical side of it was amazing, and Corey and I have been friends for a long time. It didn't seem wrong. That night, when I went to bed, Lainey snuggled up beside me. Her body was hot, and this was the closest we had been in a long time. As we snuggled, her hand caressed and fondled, sliding up and down my naked flesh. It took a nanosecond before my cock was at full stretch. It was so hard it was almost painful. It didn't take her long to find it, her warm fingers curling around it, stroking and massaging, squeezing and kneading. I was sick of masturbating, and it felt good. I rolled over, and our mouths collided in a sweet, deep kiss. Our tongues started to dance, slithering intimately, slowly at first until the fire exploded, and the dance turned into a wrestling match. Her hot body mashed tightly against me, her lithe form wriggling erratically as our hands roamed, fondling, caressing, stroking, probing. My fingers slipped into her palpating, gooey hole, which sucked them in like a liquid vacuum. She was so hot, so fucking hot. God, Luke, fuck me, baby, fuck me hard, she whimpered imploringly. I rolled her onto her back, my fingers trapped in her sloppy, engorged lips, pulsating around them, clenching tightly as I thrust them in and out as hard and fast as I could. Jesus, hurry up, you bastard, fuck me. Her hips bucked hard as she thrashed around frantically, matching my plunging hand thrust for thrust. I could wait no longer. I climbed eagerly between her widespread legs and thrust up into her hole in one hard thrust, my balls crushed against her arse. In and out, I started my race to orgasm, and it didn't take long. Her fingernails dug into my flesh, tugging painfully on my hair, her legs wrapped around me as I fucked her. As the race escalated and my mind filled with images of Corey doing exactly this, I went mad, driving deeper and deeper into her, my cock covered in her foamy cream. It changed from a frantic fuck into a brutal rape as my anger took control, and I brutalized her in an animalistic frenzy of thrusting cock. Yes, 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 do it hard, you fucking bastard. Her orgasm was as wild as my own, and when I exploded deep in her gaping, pulsating hole, she covered me in gooey, sticky fluids. Afterwards, I collapsed beside her, and she threw her leg over me, resting her head on my shoulder. Oh God, baby, that was amazing. Shit, I've missed that. Sleep came easily for the first time in a month. I slept like a deeply contented man. In the morning, the world seemed lighter, the dark gloomy mist cleared, and I felt a little better. However, I couldn't shake off the occasional thoughts of her and Corey filling my brain, and the grumpy mood returned. Yes, I was hard to live with, but I couldn't care less. After a late-night session of lovemaking, out of the blue, she whispered, "It was you, wasn't it? You called the police. You reported Corey, didn't you?" Smugly, I groaned, "Yes, it was me, and you know what, fuck him." Jesus, Luke, you cruel, heartless bastard. He has lost everything, his house, his car, all his possessions, and worst of all, his kids. Why did you do that? Because I wanted you both to feel my pain. I wanted you to feel my loss. He took something so precious from me. I wanted him to suffer. Christ, he didn't take anything from you. It was wrong, but it didn't deserve that. Oh yes, it fucking was. He stole my pride. Oh Jesus fucking Christ, don't be so melodramatic. You lost nothing. Sitting up, I snarled, "How do you think I felt finding out I couldn't satisfy my wife and she had to go to another man for fulfillment? How the fuck do you think that made me feel? I'll tell you, it hurts. It hurt a lot and made me feel like shit. So as far as I'm concerned, fuck him." She reached out, her cold fingers caressing my face. Luke, it wasn't that I was unhappy or unsatisfied. It was just a little extra fun. You call it whatever you want, Lainey. I'll call it the way I see it. Now every time I bump into people, I wonder if they know. Did he tell them? Brag about how he slept with my wife? Shaking her head in disbelief, she sighed, "What a load of crap. Nobody's talking about it. In fact, I doubt anybody knows. I think you misread the situation. Corey isn't like that." Things sort of rolled along. We were back sharing a bed and trying to make a go of it, but God, it was hard. Every day, I had to swallow my anger as some offhand casual comment ignited my simmering anger. I did get one glimmer of joy from a totally unexpected quarter. A young woman brought her car into the workshop needing a warrant of fitness. She was in her late 20s, very attractive, with beautiful bright eyes. In the car, she had a toddler, maybe 4 years old, screaming her head off, and the young woman broke down as she tried to quieten her down. I reached in and pulled the young girl out, lifting her into my arms. "Hey, sweetie, what's your name?" She sniffled shyly. "Katie." I looked at her mom, who was crying. "Would you like to come into the office, get a drink, and have a chat?" She nodded tearfully. As I placed Katie into a chair, I put the kettle on and asked, "Tea or coffee?" She smiled. "Tea, please." "What about you, Katie? What would you like?" She smiled hopefully. "Juice?" I chuckled. "Sorry, sweetie, but all I have is Coke. If your mom says it's okay." She nodded, and I headed to the vending machine, grabbing a can of Coke for her. Handing it over, I asked, "So, what's the trouble? I take it there's a problem with the car?" She nodded, holding her tea with both hands, sniffing. "I got pulled over by the police, and they noticed I don't have a warrant. They gave me a week to get it or they would yellow sticker it." Anticipating her next words, I nodded. "I don't have any money. I can barely make it week to week on the benefit, and I'm not getting any alimony to help out. Without the car, I am screwed." Sitting beside her, I muttered, "Leave it with me, and I will see what I can do. No promises, but I will try." Her face lit up for the first time since driving in. "Really? Oh my God, you are an angel." I chuckled. "Save that until I have had a look. Is there somebody who can pick you up? It might take a while." She shook her head. "No, but it's okay, we can walk." Katie burst into tears. "No, Mummy, I'm tired, it's too far." I found a biscuit in my lunch bag and handed it to her. "Don't worry, honey, I will drive you home." She smiled brightly. "What's your name and number?" I asked. "I'm Sienna," she sighed, giving me her number. I drove them home, and it was obvious that she was struggling as I pulled into the driveway. The grass was almost up to my knees, the gardens were overgrown, and the place looked terrible. As they climbed out, I said, "I might have it ready by tonight, but that will depend on what's wrong with it." She reiterated tearfully, "I don't have money, I can't pay you." I nodded. "Yeah, I got that. We can sort something out." Under my breath, I groaned, "Poor bugger." Putting the car up on the hoist, it was evident that there were multiple faults with this vehicle. The driver's side ball joints were shot, the CV joints were damaged, and it needed at least 2 tires. When you added on windshield wipers, indicator lights, and the fact it ran poorly, this was going to be costly. Taking a deep breath, I got to work. The ball joints and shock absorbers were straightforward, as were the tires, but I had to order the CV joints. The rest of the day flew by as I replaced the air filter, spark plugs, and gave it an oil change. I had to call Sienna to deliver the news that it wouldn't be ready until tomorrow. She sighed sadly, explaining she had planned to go to the supermarket. "In for a penny, in for a pound," I replied. "Get ready, and I will pick you up in half an hour." Lainey wasn't thrilled when I mentioned I wouldn't be home for dinner, but she didn't inquire about my plans. I picked up Sienna and Katie, and they both looked lovely, clearly putting effort into dressing up. Driving them to the supermarket, I accompanied them as they shopped. It was evident that Sienna could barely afford anything. She stuck to the cheapest items on her list. As we walked, I began adding various items to the cart, and Katie joined in enthusiastically, treating it like a game. Sienna panicked, pleading with Katie to stop and expressing her inability to afford it all. Laughing, I reassured her, "Don't worry about it. These items are on me, we can figure it out later. Katie continued enjoying herself, and by the time we reached the checkout, the cart was overflowing. Sienna protested when I paid for everything, but I brushed it off, saying we could sort it out later at her place. Upon arriving at their house, I helped carry the bags inside. Sienna grabbed my arm, tearfully questioning what was happening, emphasizing her financial struggles. Sienna, please don't argue with me. It's clear you could use some help, just accept the groceries, I urged, feeling her grip tighten as she cried and thanked me. Inside, I was surprised to find the house spotless despite its age and worn appearance. Sienna asked why I was doing this, and I shrugged, admitting to recent mistakes and a desire to make amends. Concerned, she clarified, Luke, I'm not sleeping with you. I hope you weren't expecting anything. Chuckling, I assured her, Sienna, you're beautiful, but that's not why I'm doing this. I simply wanted to do something nice for someone in need. She hugged me tightly, tears flowing, while Katie mirrored her emotions. Returning to the car, I noticed their yard was unkempt, and Sienna confessed the lawnmower was broken, unable to afford repairs. Feeling sympathetic, I promised to return her car the next day, assuring her there would be no cost. Maybe if you win the lottery, you'll remember me, I joked as we hugged once more. Arriving home, a wave of emotions engulfed me. Why was I compelled to help? Why did Sienna's situation affect me so deeply? Was it guilt? Lately, I'd been haunted by thoughts of Corey's kids and their circumstances. Lainey greeted me with a hug, a kiss, and a quizzical look. Why do I smell perfume on you? She asked, her curiosity evident. I recounted the events with Sienna, and Lainey's shock was palpable. Oh my God, Luke. That's incredibly thoughtful. It's nice to see the old you resurfacing. I knew that mean streak would eventually fade, she remarked, playfully poking fun at me. Her teasing couldn't dampen my spirits. Lainey prepared a late supper, and we cozied up on the sofa. So, is this woman attractive? She inquired, her nosiness peeking through. Laughing at her inquisitiveness, I replied, yes, she's quite pretty. Are you planning on setting up a payment plan or something? She teased. Or something. I hope she finds a way to repay the gesture, I said, hoping to ease any suspicions. Lainey peered into my eyes, attempting to gauge my sincerity. Under her intense gaze, I relented. There's no repayment expected. It was a gesture of goodwill. She's struggling financially, and her car is in bad shape. I just wanted to help, I explained. She kissed my cheek. Hey, I was just asking. In bed, Lainey unleashed her passion, her fiery embrace igniting an immediate response from me. As we intertwined, she playfully remarked, so, no luck with the other woman, huh? Surprised by her comment, I pulled her into a kiss, the intensity growing as we moved together. Are you thinking about her now? Are you with me or her? She whispered seductively, her voice fueling both desire and irritation. Fueled by a mix of emotions, I took control, my actions fueled by a blend of pleasure and frustration. I don't care if she repays with her body, Lainey whispered, her sultry tone betraying her desire. Exasperated, I rolled away, but Lainey pursued me, her warmth enveloping me as she pressed close. I'm just saying, if you want to, I'm okay with it. All I ask is for honesty, she murmured, her body molding against mine. The next evening, I returned Sienna's car, and she greeted me warmly. Thanks, Luke. This means a lot to me, she said, her gratitude evident. It's no trouble, I replied with a smile, as she admired the repairs. How much did this really cost? She inquired, her curiosity piqued. It's none of your business, I grumbled as I retrieved my toolkit from the trunk. What's going on? Sienna inquired. I'm fixing that darn lawnmower, I replied, determined to proceed despite her attempts to dissuade me. After draining the old fuel and installing a new air filter and spark plug, the lawnmower finally roared to life, albeit after numerous attempts. I tackled the overgrown lawn, starting with the highest setting and gradually lowering it until the grass looked immaculate. To show her appreciation, Sienna brought out a glass of water and some cookies. As we conversed, Katie frolicked around, her clothes adorned with grass stains from her playful antics. Luke, if you'd like to stay for dinner, there's enough for you to join us, Sienna offered. I accepted with gratitude, remarking, that would be lovely, thank you. During dinner, we listened to Katie chatter incessantly about various topics. Sienna proved to be a skilled cook, and as the meal came to an end, I realized I'd forgotten to inform Lainey about my delay, and my phone was still in the car. I braced myself for Lainey's reaction, knowing she'd be furious. Sienna kindly drove me back to the workshop to retrieve my car. As we bid farewell, she expressed her gratitude once more. Thank you for everything, Luke. I kissed her hand in response. It was my pleasure, Sienna. She chuckled. Even mowing the lawn? As she drove away, I couldn't help but admire her intelligence and beauty. It baffled me how she ended up entangled with her disrespectful boyfriend. Yet, love often led us to make foolish choices. Returning home, I faced Lainey's wrath as she unleashed her anger, questioning my whereabouts. She exploded, threatening to hit me if I mentioned being with Sienna. Then you better do it, I retorted. Her fury intensified, and she delivered a fierce punch followed by a flurry of slaps until I intervened, holding her hands to cease the assault. Drawing her close, I attempted to calm her, feeling her body relax against mine. I thought you didn't care, I murmured as she bit my hand, leaving a mark. You could have at least called me. I wasn't worried about her, I thought you might have been in an accident, she confessed, her tone softening as we embraced. Apologizing, I acknowledged my mistake and explained the situation to Eloise and Craig, who observed from the doorway. Inside, I recounted my evening to a skeptical Lainey. Believe whatever you want, but I don't owe you any explanations. You forfeited that privilege a while ago, I asserted firmly. Lainey's voice trembled with emotion as she asked, will we ever move past this? It's not easy for me. I still think about it every day, and it still hurts. I'm trying to forgive or forget, but it's a struggle, Lainey. I love you, but this is tough, I admitted. Is spending time with that woman my punishment? She whispered hoarsely while we were doing the dishes. No, I'm simply helping someone who needs assistance, I responded. Later, Lainey broached a difficult topic. Luke, we need to talk, and I know you won't like it. I braced myself and nodded. Okay, go ahead. Luke, I feel awful. Every day, I'm consumed by guilt for what happened to Corey's kids. They're in a terrible state, and I want to help, she confessed. Her words resonated with my own feelings of guilt. I feel the same way. Perhaps we could give them financial support or buy them new clothes, I suggested. Lainey shook her head. No, that's not enough. I want to bring the girls here and take care of them until Corey is released, she proposed. Let's take a little break. If you like stories like this, then subscribe to my channel. Continuing the story. I was taken aback. No, Lainey, I can't agree to that. After what he did to me, you can't expect me to look after his kids, I objected firmly. She persisted, Luke, it's not about us. Those kids are suffering, and they need a home. We owe it to them to reduce their suffering. No, I can't do it. He'll be out soon anyway, I retorted. Lainey looked at me with frustration. Luke, you're being spiteful. Where's the compassionate guy who helped a stranger? I want him back. If you can spend time mowing lawns and fixing cars for strangers, surely we can help a friend, she pleaded. I remained resolute. Corey is not my friend. He stopped being my friend when he betrayed us, I declared. The atmosphere at home grew chilly in the following days. I hoped the weekend would provide some relief, but at Eloise's soccer match, I couldn't escape the tension. After the game, Eloise asked if Belle could sleep over, and I reluctantly agreed, sensing the weight of her request and the disapproving glances from Lainey and others. As I loaded Belle's gear into the car, I noticed Lainey putting Harper's car seat in as well. I grabbed her arm abruptly. What are you doing? She apologized, sorry, babe. Harper has separation anxiety, they can't be apart. It's just a sleepover, and Gail needs a break. Reluctantly, I nodded, realizing I couldn't refuse without seeming like a jerk. On the way home, we stopped to pick up pizza for an early dinner. Lainey seemed happier than usual, running around after Harper to ensure he was content. Belle and Eloise were having a blast, just like old times, laughing and playing together. That left Craig and me to keep each other company. At bedtime, Lainey made sure to show her appreciation for letting her have her way. The intimacy was intense, and in the morning, I was awakened with a beautiful, leisurely blowjob. She pleasured me until I climaxed, filling the back of her throat. The day passed with chores, and Lainey took the girls shopping. I knew it would be an expensive trip, but I accepted it. Despite what I told Lainey, I felt guilt about Corey's kids. Around 3 in the afternoon, they returned with the car full of groceries. It took several trips to bring everything inside. I was taken aback. Lainey, I expected clothes and gifts, but why did you bring the entire supermarket? She chuckled, honey, we just needed a few things. Realization dawned on me. A few things? What time is Gail picking up the kids? Lainey hesitated, I'm not sure. Don't bullshit me, Lainey. When is she coming? Han, wouldn't it be nice to give Gail a break for a few days? The kids are happy here, and Harper is having fun with Craig. Let's let them stay for a bit longer, she suggested. I think it's a bad idea. They need stability, not bouncing from house to house, I countered. Well, what if they stayed here? They get along well with our kids, and they're not happy at Gail's. Her kids are older, and they don't want the little ones around, Lainey proposed. I said no, Lainey, and I mean it. If Gail can't handle them, I'll call Child Protective Services, I stated firmly. For God's sake. Lainey exploded. You got their father locked up, and now you refuse to help out? Angrily, I shot back, he's locked up because he's a drug dealer, not because of me. You framed him. He told me he knew nothing about those guns, and you planted them, she accused tearfully. We've been over this. Why are you taking his side? Do you think so little of me that you believe him over me? I retorted. Sighing deeply, Lainey said, no, babe, but you admitted you called the cops. Why did you do it? If you hadn't, we could have worked through it. Fed up with the same argument, I snapped, call Gail and get those kids out of here. I don't want them here. She stood her ground. No. Those kids need some love in their life, and if you can't accept that, maybe it's you who should leave. I nodded. Yeah, you know what, you're right, consider it done. As I turned and headed towards the bedroom, I realized she was right, this was over. I was tired of the constant strife, and things weren't going to change, she wasn't going to change. I packed my belongings in silence until Eloise entered, tears streaming down her face. Daddy, please don't go. We'll be good, I promise. She gripped my arm, trying to pull me back. I embraced her tightly. Sweetheart, I have to go, but don't worry, I'm not leaving permanently. Your mother and I just need some space. As I walked into the living room with Eloise in my arms, Lainey pleaded, Luke, don't go. I didn't mean it. I don't want you to leave like this. Stay, let's talk it out. Shaking my head, I grimaced. No, you said it, and I think deep down, it's what you want. By choosing him over me, you've shown where your true feelings lie. As I packed my things into the car, Lainey stepped outside. Luke, I didn't mean those things. I know you wouldn't do anything malicious. We just need to help fix what happened, and helping the kids is the first step. We embraced, finding solace in each other's arms. Where are you going? She asked. I don't know yet. All I know is I won't stand by while you paint me as the villain. Maybe I shouldn't have reported him, but he destroyed my marriage and family, and there had to be consequences. Damn it, Luke, this situation frustrates me. He didn't take anything from you. I'm still here, still loving you and only you. He took away my trust in your love. Oh, for heaven's sake, Luke, all this pride and masculinity nonsense, she snapped. It's utter rubbish. All we did was have sex. I love you, and I know I should have been honest with you. Yes, it was wrong, but think about it, nobody got hurt. Where was the harm? Goodbye, Lainey. I'll visit the kids as often as I can. She kicked the car as I backed out of the driveway. I spent the night at the workshop, pondering my options. This was it for me, the final straw. On Monday, around lunchtime, Lainey arrived at the workshop with Harper and Craig. She handed me some sandwiches. Can we talk about this, Luke? I ushered her into the office and closed the door. Craig leaped into my arms, and I hugged him tightly. Lainey smiled warmly. Luke, honey, I want you to come home. This is foolish. I want that too, but it's not happening under these circumstances. Why, Luke? The kids aren't a bother. They all get along well. It's the right thing for us to do. This isn't resolving anything, Lainey. You're not hearing me. You're trying to manipulate me into something I'm not comfortable with. My life matters too. She slumped. So, what do we do? What happens now? I'm staying here. If you want to talk, then we talk, but I'm not budging for now. With a frustrated growl, she led the kids out. Craig gave me one last hug before they left. I spent the rest of the afternoon reviewing finances, knowing the legal system favored Lainey in situations like these. She could have committed any transgression, and the courts would still side with her, leaving me to foot the bill. The more I dwelled on it, the more enraged I became. I was being evicted from my own home, all because of her mistakes, and I'd be the one left to deal with the consequences. It infuriated me. I knew the drill. The courts would freeze our accounts, granting Lainey access, and then they'd come after me. It would be a lengthy legal ordeal. I had to act swiftly. The first step was withdrawing as much cash as possible from our private and business accounts and stashing it away. The following day, I wasted no time. I rushed to the bank and canceled our credit cards, withdrew half of our joint account funds in cash, revoked Lainey's access to the business account, and withdrew almost all the cash. If the accounts got frozen, at least I'd have something to survive on. Lainey walked in around 7 in the evening, finding me munching on takeout and downing my 5th beer. She chuckled. Of course, you'd be eating crappy takeout. Grabbing a beer, she joined me. So, this is your new sleeping arrangement? Yeah, trying to save on costs. I knocked down the wall between the office and the storeroom and put a bed in there. I nodded, taking a swig of beer. What do you want, Lainey? I want you to come home. The kids miss you, I miss you. This isn't right. Well, you can fix it. Send Corey's kids back to Gail's place, and we can try to sort things out, as you say. She downed her beer in one gulp, licking her lips and belching. I'm not doing that. Taking care of those kids is the right thing to do. We caused it, so we need to fix it. In that case, there's nothing more to say. I'm not taking care of or paying for the kids of the guy who cheated with my wife, who pretended to be my friend while screwing me over. Sorry, Lainey, but I'm not doing it. For heaven's sake, Luke, he was your friend. You know he was. You guys used to have so much fun together, working on cars and stuff. Why can't you see there was nothing to it? If that's true, then why are you taking care of his kids? Because someone has to, and regardless of what happened, he's still our friend. Like hell he is. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel, babe. He's still my friend. If that's your stance, then you need to leave right now and never come back. Babe, please drop the tough guy act. It's not you, and this macho crap isn't helping. Taking a deep breath, I delivered the harsh truth. Lainey, I've canceled all our credit cards. I've left half the balance in the joint account, but from now on, you're on your own. I won't be paying for his kids. Her faint smile vanished, replaced by a snarl. What? You jerk. How are we supposed to live? Not my problem. Slamming her fist on the desk, she yelled, You can't do this. I'm getting a lawyer. That's my money too. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. It was going to be a messy legal battle. Once the lawyers got involved, I knew I'd be in for a rough ride. The next day, I initiated the next phase of my plan. I settled all outstanding business invoices and offered discounted services for cash payments. Surprisingly, many clients took up the offer. The legal ordeal began immediately. Lainey sought assistance from WINZ, and naturally, they reached out to me. I pleaded ignorance, claiming I had no idea what was going on. Our accounts, including the business, were frozen swiftly. The situation escalated rapidly as Lainey attempted to secure a loan against the mortgage, only to find she needed my approval, which she couldn't get due to the frozen accounts. With all our accounts locked, even obtaining a credit card became impossible. Bills started accumulating: insurance, phone, power, internet. Lainey managed to access a solo mother's benefit and, with WINZ's help, temporarily halted the mortgage payments. I sustained myself through cash jobs and the money I had stashed away. It became challenging when I had to let go of the 2 longtime employees at the business. Scaling back the business meant I couldn't afford to keep them on. I deliberately reduced stock levels and only restocked items when customers paid up front. The situation turned ugly, but I remained indifferent. I didn't file for divorce, yet WINZ arranged a mediated meeting to discuss a settlement. They doubted my claim that the business had suddenly turned unprofitable overnight. The mediator, clearly biased in Lainey's favor, viewed me as a negligent father avoiding child support obligations while portraying Lainey as a benevolent figure helping disadvantaged children. Tensions peaked when I bluntly stated, "I'm not looking after the kids of the guy my wife cheated with." The mediator admonished me for my language and threatened repercussions if I didn't cooperate. They decided to deduct $1,000 weekly from my business account, despite my protests. Fuming, I consulted my accountant, who confirmed the legality of the deduction, even if it plunged the account into overdraft. I refused to accept the overdraft, but he informed me it wouldn't deter the IRS from pursuing the debt. Left with no choice, I opted to close the business and declared bankruptcy. Despite protests, I maintained that the business was not viable. Assessors visited the workshop but found nothing to seize as I had depleted the inventory. I survived on cash jobs arranged through word of mouth, earning just enough to get by. My resolve remained firm: she ain't getting a damn cent. One evening at the supermarket, I ran into Sienna, and naturally, we caught up. I mentioned my recent separation from my wife, and she offered her sympathy along with a dinner invitation for that night. Arriving at Sienna's place, I was taken aback by how stunning it looked. The gardens were manicured, and the overall ambience was inviting. Sienna attributed it to the motivation my work provided and the functional lawnmower. We enjoyed a delightful dinner, with little Katie entertaining us with her imaginative fairy tales. Being around them only accentuated how much I missed my own family. After Katie went to bed, Sienna and I sat on the patio, enjoying the evening. She inquired about my plans moving forward. "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "The pain is still fresh, and I can't say if there's any hope for reconciliation." "I'm sorry to hear that, Luke," Sienna offered a comforting hug. "I can't imagine how hard it must be, especially missing your kids." Nodding, I acknowledged, "It's tough. I see them every weekend, but it's not the same as having them around all the time." Leaving Sienna's, I felt a sense of warmth from her genuine care, reminiscent of Lainey's past demeanor. Weekends with the kids were challenging without proper sleeping arrangements, limiting our time together. Lainey's icy reception at soccer games only widened the divide between us. So, it was unexpected when Lainey stormed into the workshop one evening, distraught, tears streaming down her face, lamenting our impending loss of everything: our house, the business, everything. I grimly confirmed that I was aware of our dire financial situation, having already met with the bank. Lainey collapsed beside me, pleading for us to put aside our differences and reconcile. "I never wanted you to leave," she confessed. "But your actions suggested otherwise," I countered, unable to ignore the turmoil her choices had caused. Desperate, Lainey grasped my hand, spinning my wedding band around my finger. "Don't you feel any remorse?" "Of course, I do," I sighed. "But let's not forget your role in all this. You played a part, too." The tension between us lingered, a stark reminder of the complexity of our situation. Her gaze dropped to the ground, and I muttered, "You only want me back because you need the money. Why wait until now, after months?" Because I couldn't face talking to you. For months, I've resented you for putting us through this. We're on the brink of losing everything, the business, the house. Where are we supposed to go? She pleaded. Lainey, I didn't want to leave, but you made staying impossible, I replied. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm tired of fighting with you. The kids are miserable. They miss you as much as I do. I know things have been messed up, but I want our old life back. Look around, Luke. You let this place deteriorate. You used to take pride in it, love it. And now, this, all to save a few bucks. We could afford it, but you had to humiliate me, make me beg for help from WINZ, she exclaimed. It wasn't about the money, it was about principle. He was wrong, and I wasn't going to just pay up. That's why I did all of this, I argued. Principle? It's just some twisted male pride thing. All this suffering because I had sex with another man. It didn't change anything. I still love you, and I miss being with you, she confessed. If you were happy, why look elsewhere? This talk of love is bullshit. Obviously, you weren't happy, or you wouldn't have done it. Don't blame it on being stoned, that's a cop-out. You wanted it, I retorted. Okay, I like sex, you know that. We talked about swinging, about being with other people. I don't see the problem. Why all this? She countered. We lapsed into silence, stuck in a loop. Finally, I blurted out, I'll put some money in the account to stall the bank for a while so we can figure things out. Damn it, she snapped. I don't care about the house, I want you back. Living here sucks, you can't even cook proper meals. I won't return only to find the same issues. I don't trust you. What happens when another guy offers you weed? Are you going to give in? I don't even know who else you've been with, I expressed my concerns. I'm not a slut, I haven't been with anyone since you left. Luke, I promise I won't cheat again. I know what we did was wrong, and I swear it won't happen again, she pleaded, her eyes wide and hands raised in supplication. Please, come home. No, Lainey. I can't do it. I'm not happy, but I don't see another way, I firmly stated. Damn you, Luke. You're not just hurting me, it's the kids too. You're punishing everyone, she accused. I fought off the bank, releasing just enough money to buy us some time. I was stunned to hear that Corey was being released early on bail due to overcrowding. He'd be on home detention, restricted to a small flat nearby. He couldn't even take the kids to school, completely reliant on friends for help. I heard from friends that he resumed selling drugs, resorting to dealing in harder substances since he couldn't grow weed anymore. His place was under daily police surveillance. Jail only introduced him to more contacts. I felt sorry for the kids, he was probably using himself. Sienna brought her car to the workshop, not running smoothly. As she stepped out, she flashed a smile. Don't worry, this time I can pay. I chuckled in agreement. So, what's the issue? Looking around, she remarked, Wow, what happened here? It looks like a clearance sale. Laughing, I replied, Yeah, something like that. So, about the car? Shrugging, she said, Not sure, it's hard to start and runs rough. Upon inspection, I found a blown head gasket, which would be costly to fix. After cleaning up, I entered the office. There's good news and bad news. The good news is it's just a head gasket. The bad news is it'll still be expensive. She winced. Expensive? How much are we talking about? It'll need machining, which I can't do here. The gasket won't cost much, but the machining will be around $400, I explained. Frowning, she muttered, Ouch. What about your work? That won't be much. Altogether, it might be around $500, I replied. Her shoulders slumped, and she asked, Can I still use it as it is? It'll run for a while, but it'll get rougher and eventually fail. Plus, it might cause more damage, I cautioned. I guess I'll have to get used to walking. I could use the exercise anyway, she sighed. Leave it with me. How much can you afford? I inquired. Maybe $300, she replied. After making a cup of tea, we chatted. Katie had started school, so the car was essential for her. We discussed various topics, and Sienna asked about Lainey. I shrugged. I think it's over. I drove her home, informing her she'd be without the car for a few days. When I removed the head, I discovered it was cracked. Instead of getting it welded, I found a reconditioned one for $500 from a car wrecker, but it would take a couple of days to arrive. Instead of calling her, I dropped by after work, offering to drive her to the supermarket if needed. On the way, Katie hugged me, and Sienna planted a kiss on my cheek. When I delivered Sienna's car on Friday night, she tried to pay me, but I refused. She hugged me tightly, and Katie chimed in, "Luke, I can pay $200. I told you I won't take your money, and I mean it. Consider it a gift, from one friend to another. I owe you for all those dinners you cooked for me," I insisted. She grimaced, "But you mentioned something about getting it machined or something. You must have had to pay for it." He owed me a favor. Honestly, it was nothing, I assured her. The days passed by, with occasional interruptions from Sienna, who often brought something nice for lunch. We always ended up chatting and laughing, and she was quickly becoming my best friend. On the other hand, dealing with Lainey was becoming more difficult. Surprisingly, she stopped asking for money, and the bank had stopped complaining. It seemed Lainey was managing the house payment, so they were satisfied. However, it made me nervous about where she found the money. Coupled with her hyperactive, ditzy behavior, it only made me more fearful. Now that she didn't have Corey's kids, I expected her to pressure me to move back home, but it never came. Her cold attitude only seemed to worsen. When I picked up the kids, she didn't even bother to come to the door anymore. A couple of weeks later, Sienna appeared at the workshop. "Luke, could you do me a favor?" As if I could refuse her, I replied, "Yeah, no worries." "What is it this time?" Embarrassed, she whispered, "It's nothing like that, but I just bought a second-hand trampoline for Katie from a lady down the street, and it won't fit in my car. If it's too much trouble, I can find another way." Realizing I had unintentionally offended her, I apologized. "I'm sorry, Sienna. I didn't mean it to sound like that. I was just trying to make a joke. I actually have some time now. I'm waiting for a guy to bring his car in. Is now okay?" She laughed. "Now would be perfect, actually." I hooked up the trailer, and as we drove, she sighed, "Luke, I'm so grateful for everything you've done for me and Katie, but you don't have to. Back at the workshop, I got the impression you might be getting tired of helping me out all the time." I patted her hand, resting on her knee. "I was just trying to be funny, Sienna. You're always the highlight of my day, and I love being able to help out." Her thank you was a bright, beaming smile. She directed me to the street where Corey lived, and I was surprised to see Lainey's car parked outside. A cold shiver ran down my spine as I came to a stop. Sienna asked, "Are you okay? You look like someone walked over your grave." I shook my head, trying to regain composure. In a way, that's exactly what happened. That's my wife's car, parked where it shouldn't be. "Oh, shit. Are you okay, Luke? Should we go?" "We can get the trampoline later," she suggested. Her use of the word trampoline made me chuckle. "It's okay, no, we'll do it now." As we got out of the car, Sienna rushed around and hugged me. It might be innocent, she might be able to explain. I nodded, "Yeah, maybe." We loaded the trampoline onto the trailer, and as she went to pay the lady, I quickly intercepted and paid her. Sienna growled, but I brushed aside her complaint. "Sienna, you may have done me the biggest favor today. I am happy to pay." She kissed me, and unlike every other time, it was on the lips and they tasted as sweet as she smelled. Oh, the kiss was amazing, but I had to push her away. "Stop, Sienna, please. I can't do that." She nodded, "Thanks, Luke." As we pulled out onto the road, I inched forward slowly. We had been there for over an hour, and as we arrived at Corey's place, Lainey's car was still parked there. We delivered the trampoline, and I went back to work. I tried to wrap my head around everything. Was she seeing that bastard again? Over the next few days, I borrowed customers' cars and drove over to Corey's place. Every day, Lainey's car was there, and I noticed a couple of times she was loading packages into her car. What concerned me as I followed her was that she dropped off smaller parcels at different addresses. She was delivering drugs for him. F-U-C-K, I screamed. My brain was in overdrive. She was seeing that prick again and dealing drugs for him. I wondered if she had the drugs at home. Were the kids in danger? Were these criminals hanging around our place as well? What the hell was she thinking? I decided to confront her. I saw the shock on her face when she opened the door. "Luke, baby, it's so good to see you." Her eyes bulged, and she looked anxious, fidgeting and moving from foot to foot. "Lainey, I'm just here to get some information. Are you seeing Corey again?" Shocked at my direct approach, she became defensive. "Why do you care? You haven't even talked to me for months." "I want to know. Just answer the question, are you seeing him?" Sighing, she murmured, "Luke, what do you want? Why are you here? Is it just simple jealousy?" She giggled. "Is that it? You don't want me, but you don't want him to have me either." "Actually, I'm worried about the kids. If you're hanging around with him and doing drugs, they're going to be exposed to it, and I don't want them harmed." She pushed me hard in the chest. "Get out, you bastard. Fuck off and stay out of our lives." 2 days later, I heard the sirens, and I knew what was going on. Sure enough, later that day, I got a call from Lainey at the police station. "Luke, I need your help. I've been arrested." Playing dumb, I asked, "What for?" "We can talk about that later. I'm being released, but I need a ride. I've got to get the kids home." When I didn't answer, she rasped, "Luke, you have to help. They have the kids, and I need to pick them up." The only reason they were even prepared to release her was because she was a mother with one child under 5. That's all that saved her. I decided to intervene. She had her chance and messed it up, so now I had to step up. I went down to the police station, mostly to find out what was going to happen and what rights I had. I was taken into an office, and a counselor and police support officer came in and laid out my options. Their preference was not to release the kids into Lainey's care, but nowadays they tried to keep families together. We agreed that if I could find somewhere to live, the kids would be released into my custody in the interim, at least. She had been charged with dealing Class A drugs. Yes, she was being released on bail, but she would have very strict bail conditions regarding association. I was a bit stumped. Lainey was going to be staying at home, so we couldn't go there, and most of my friends had stopped hanging around when it became public knowledge that I reported Corey. My only real friend now was Sienna. She answered on the first ring, "Hey Luke, how's things?" I explained the situation before springing it on her. "Sienna, could we stay at your place for a few days until I can sort something else out?" She didn't hesitate. "Of course you can. Stay as long as you like." As I was led back into the main office, Lainey saw me and came running over. "Oh, thank God you're here. I was getting worried." "Lainey, I can give you a ride home, but I only came down to sort out the kids." She looked confused. "What the hell are you talking about, Luke?" "Lainey, I am taking the kids. They're not safe with you." "Like hell." She screamed hysterically, "You're not taking my kids, you fucking prick." The cop who had escorted her out intervened. "Lady, if you don't settle down, you'll be going straight back inside." She looked back and forth between us before breaking down. "Luke, baby, please don't do this. Please, I'm begging, not the kids." "Lainey, until you sort your shit out, I am keeping them. They're staying with me. When you can prove you're capable, we will sort something out. Until then, they stay with me." Her belligerence returned. "Jesus, you haven't got anywhere for them to stay. They can't stay with you at the bloody workshop. We are going to be staying with a friend." The anger behind her eyes was barely contained. "Friends? What fucking friends? You haven't got any. Everybody hates you for being a vindictive fucking narc." The cop grabbed her arm. "Lady, I warned you, either calm down or you'll be spending the night." Snarling like a rabid dog, she barked, "He's trying to take my kids for God's sake." He nodded. Sounds like a good idea to me. Fuck you. You don't know anything about me, smug bastard. Okay, lady, that's it. I think you can stay for the night. He turned to me. You can leave. She's staying with us. I turned and walked out, and she started screaming and yelling. That was the end of it. The cops grabbed her, and she kicked and flailed her arms like an out-of-control helicopter. Noo. She screamed. You malicious fucking prick. You'll pay for this. I picked up the kids, and it was a tearful greeting as I explained that Mom was not going to be around for a while. We turned up at Sienna's place, and she met us at the door. Katie dragged Eloise and Craig away to show them where their room was. Sienna greeted me with a big hug, and I apologized. I'm sorry for all this, Sienna. We'll be gone in a day or so, I promise. She smiled. Luke, after everything you have done for us, you can stay as long as you want. It will be nice for Katie to have other kids to play with. As we walked into the living room, the smell of dinner cooking was overpowering. It smelled amazing. Dinner was a bit somber, although Katie chatted away, and Sienna said all the right things, and slowly it warmed up. After dinner, Eloise and I did the dishes as Craig and Katie played. Dad, what's going to happen to Belle and Harper? I don't know, sweetie. That's all out of my control. Dad, can't we help them? We could go home and live there. No, honey, your mom is going to be living there. Then why can't we all go home and be together again? Because Mom and I aren't getting along. Look, honey, she is having problems, which is why you have to stay with me. After putting the kids to bed, Sienna and I sat together with a coffee. Luke, I was serious. Stay as long as you like. It will be nice to have company, she said. I gave her a hug. Thanks, Sienna. I'll sleep on your sofa? If you want to. I sensed that there was an offer of something else hiding behind her nodding head, but the sofa was no worse than the tiny bed I had been using at the workshop, and I didn't want to confuse things more than they were. The next morning was chaotic as I ran around getting the kids ready for school and dropping them off. Sienna volunteered to mind Craig, which was a godsend. Lainey was released the next day and stopped at the workshop on her way home. She was beside herself and couldn't stop crying, apologizing over and over again. She had been there when the armed defenders burst in and arrested Corey. There was enough ice and other Class A drugs there that this time Corey was going away for a very long time. This was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. Lainey didn't realize that it was me who had reported them. Lainey, you have a chance here. Clean your act up and get straight. Stop taking that shit and straighten your life out. If you don't, I warn you now, I'm keeping the kids, I said. I think the reality of the situation was finally sinking in. Luke, what am I going to do? I can't do this on my own, not without the kids. Sorry, Lainey, but you are going to be on your own. Our relationship is over, but I promise, if you try to sort yourself out, I will help out where I can, and when you're clean, the kids can come back and live with you. I could see by the look in her eyes that she was scared. Sienna was amazing. She took over running the kids around, taking them to school while I focused on taking as much work as I could. Luckily, my reputation was still sound, and word spread quickly that I was taking on more work. At the weekend, I took the kids over to visit Lainey. She was a mess. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she had obviously been crying, but the moment the kids ran to her and they shared a group hug, her demeanor changed instantly. She made lunch, and I stayed while the kids had their visit. It went pretty well. Lainey didn't say much to me, although I did hear her cross-examining the kids about where they were staying and what was happening, and I saw the look of horror on her face when she found out. As we were leaving, she took me aside. Luke, I don't care about anything else, but I want the kids back. I'll do whatever you want, but please don't take them from me. Lainey, this isn't about me taking the kids. I'm not doing this to punish you. As soon as you're back on your feet, you can have them back. I presented her with an offer. Lainey agreed to an uncontested divorce and the division of assets, allowing us to go our separate ways, and I will assist you at your trial. The look of horror on her face deepened rather than subsiding. Lainey, I'll act as a character witness for you, pay child support and alimony, and support you in becoming the kids' main custodian. That, in itself, should bolster your defense. Unhappy as she was about the situation, she understood that accepting my offer was the only way for her to regain custody of the kids. Luke, you're not giving me a chance. I feel railroaded here. Sorry, Lainey, but I can't see any other way forward. But why couldn't we give it another go? You and me, babe. I still love you. I don't care about what you've been doing. All I want is our family back together. The floodgates opened, and she had a complete meltdown. Lainey, you brought this on yourself. If you wanted to give our marriage another go, why did you go back to Corey? Through her sniffles, she whimpered, Luke, you abandoned me. I had no money, no support, no love. Corey at least offered me some love, and the money I made meant I could actually make ends meet. Yeah, running drugs. Do you know how much danger you put the kids in? What if people found out you had drugs at the house? Her trial proceeded straightforwardly. She was fortunate to receive a suspended 2-year jail sentence and a fine, all based on her clean criminal record, her probation officer's report, and my character statement. At least she had her freedom, a home to live in, a job, and, of course, the kids. It was up to her to make it work. As for me, I reclaimed my business. Although child support was unavoidable this time, I didn't mind. I loved my kids and was happy to contribute for my own, I just wasn't willing to pay for his. Lainey and I crafted a friendly relationship that included regular visitation rights. Lainey and I both faced a couple of years of hard work ahead. She worked long hours to stay afloat, while for me, it was all about rebuilding the business. Lainey surprised me by taking on Corey's kids. I probably shouldn't have been surprised, but at least this time, I wasn't financially responsible for them. It did make me feel a little better, knowing they would have a decent life. As for what would happen when Corey got out, well, that's a bridge we would cross when we came to it. Sienna and I developed our fledgling relationship. The kids got along great, and weekend visits became something we all looked forward to. Lainey and Sienna managed to navigate a civil relationship, if not exactly becoming friends. Eloise and Craig adored Sienna, but maybe not as much as I did. Write your opinion in the comments. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Remember, you're writing a story too, and it's up to you whether it's a good one or not.